Thank you for that introduction. One day, my mom and I were sitting in our family room. The sun was shining through the window, the dogs were lying around, and the news was playing on the TV. It was talking about the most recent civil unrest, and I remember my mom turning to me and saying, "This is the world you are going to inherit." I wasn't really fond of the idea, but I didn't think there was anything I could do at the time. I'm going to persuade you that young adults are the economic future of our society. Some of you may believe that young adults are just the worst. They don't do anything. They don't take responsibility for anything. They just want to play video games and hang out with their friends. I will give you some reasons to at least believe that not all young adults are like this. While others of you may believe that young adults are just the best and they're helpful and they absolutely are the future of our society. I will give you more reasons to encourage them. But you might be asking yourself, why should I listen to you? Who are you? I myself am a young adult, so I'd like to think that gives me a little insight. But if that doesn't work for you, when I was in school, I read a book by these two young adults who would go and help with political campaigns. And they started basically an organization of young adults who would go and help with political campaigns. Now we'll be drawing on that. But without further ado, I'm going to tell you about childhood, adulthood, and passing the torch. Let's start with childhood. Kids spend a lot of time in school. They get up early and get ready for school, and then they have to catch the bus, and then they spend all day in school. And by the time they get home, they have to work on homework and chores, and then it's basically time for bed. What about their mindset, their thought process? I found a study done by Stanford EDU they interviewed 4,317 students from 10 different schools. And I made a little chart here that illustrates their findings. It's about the top stressors in schools. And the top stressor that 56% of the students identified was homework. About 6 out of 10 students saying homework is the top stressor in schools. And that doesn't even include the stress of their normal lives, their out-of-school lives. Like, they have chores to complete, they have families to do things with, some have church to go to. And this all adds to their stress. Now, we've talked about childhood. We're going to talk about adulthood. Legally, you are considered an adult when you turn 18. Most kids strive to become 18 just so they can get out of school. But there are other benefits, like being able to vote, being able to drive without restrictions, and even joining the army. But with turning 18, you get a bigger influence as well. However, I don't think that we should have to wait until we are 18 to be of some influence. In their book, Do Hard Things, A Teenage Rebellion Against Low Expectations, Alex and Brett Harris recall talking to a columnist. They said, "The teen years are not a vacation from responsibility. They are the training ground of future leaders who dare to be responsible." Which brings me to the conclusion that we should encourage high school freshmen, to start thinking about ways they can affect the future. They may not be adults yet, but they can still do something. We've talked about adulthood and childhood. Now let's talk about passing the torch. Some of you might say that children are the future because they will grow up to affect the future. But this thought process causes stress and makes children aren't simply allowed to be children because of this thought process. As Lawrence Grossberg says on page 56 of his book, Caught in the Crossfire, Kids, Politics, and America's Future, finally, what is perhaps saddest is that these kids believe the future is, at best, going to look a lot like the present, whatever they do. Childhood and youth are about having dreams. Adults' dreams for and about kids, and kids' dreams about themselves and their future. It is dreams, the possibility that the future is not going to be like the present, that opens up the realm of imagination, play, and hope. Too many kids today can't afford to have dreams. There is no space and no time for dreaming in the world we have created for them, so they are afraid of the future. But what is particularly sad, I think, is that they did not choose this or even simply absorb it. Adults set the stage so kids can take over. They are the ones who affect the present so that we have a future. In the Bible story, David was told that he would not build a temple for God, but his son Solomon would. So David didn't just sit around thinking, okay, Solomon's the future. He decided to gather the materials for Solomon so that Solomon didn't have to worry about that when it came time for him to build the temple. I have given you reasons to consider young adults the economic future of this society. I've done this by telling you about childhood, adulthood, and passing the torch. Now that I'm a young adult, inheriting that future that my mom talked about doesn't seem so daunting. But what can you do? In the description, I have given a link to a site with 8 volunteer opportunities for young adults. I encourage you to go in and find one that piques your interest. Maybe commit to doing it. But remember, the children aren't the future. The future is for the children. Next up is Natalie.